you are with the Advocates, Jessie Earle and me, Tracy Gilchrist, and we are welcoming our guest, Gerod Rody, today. He is with Out for Sustainability. Welcome, Gerod.
Hi.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to hear about what's happening in the green world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, first I would ask you just simply, what is your background with green activism? How did you become interested in it?
It's interesting. I grew up in a very conservative family in the suburbs, like a lot of people, and I just saw all this waste, like 8-lane superhighways that were connecting Walmarts, and I just felt like there's got to be a better way than all this wasted potential, both human and natural, and that led me into an early interest in real estate development around mixed-use properties and all these things. So that's kind of the industry-wide way I got into it. But in terms of activism, it really kind of, as I came out as a queer man when I was 24, it really propelled me into thinking about the world in a completely different way. Because when you come out as like a different person than you were before. It's amazing.
Right.
Exactly. Like, the closet is a different space than out in the bigger world, and so it gave me a really fresh perspective, and it kind of crystallized that this work isn't just about doing things better; it's about transforming how things are done. And sustainability, I think, is really, for me anyway, not just about how can we be recycling a little bit more or whatnot. That is important, and the collective good that recycling does is valuable, but it's more incredible to think about, how do I live my life in a way that is good for society and for the planet? So that's kind of...
It's a big question.
It's a big question. It's a huge question. And I don't think anybody's totally cracked it. Right. But that's the point. We're all in this together, and you don't have to be perfect to do this work. I talk about transformation. But just like coming out, you don't suddenly become like a fearless person when you're out of the closet. Like you're still a human being, and just like when you come out for sustainability, you are still learning. And there's still, like, I still love my shoes, but now I try to get shoes that I can get resold, and I just change how I think about things. And that's really what I think the power in green activism is. It's not, it's more about how can I be creative? How can I be fabulous? How can I live a life that is rich and wonderful? Like, I don't drive a car. I'm fortunate to live in a city where the transit's good. But even in Seattle, where transit's, good job, Seattle, for trying. I just decided I wanted to live in a neighborhood, and I was fortunate enough to build a life around that. And not everyone's going to be able to get rid of their car, right?
So Los Angeles must be crushing your soul right now.
I spend a lot of time in traffic here. It's true.
It's one of the places where. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm taking Uber pools instead of my own car. It's like those little things that you can identify that make it so much more fun to be sustainable. And I've met people in the car. Like, it's kind of awesome to live sustainably.
Great.
And one of the things I wanted to ask, sort of jumping off that, you're making the connection to like coming out and environmentalism. Why? I mean, obviously both are part of your identities, but why is it important for you to be connecting those two?
Yeah. I think for me, it's my values. Sustainability is my core values. It's why I get up every morning, and being gay is who I am. And you put those two things together, and I've been a part of gay running groups. I've been a part of I'm part of a gay book club, and those things are great. Those are my interests. But if I could pair my values and my identity, like, it's so powerful. And so and with just like coming out as a queer person, it is the most political thing you can do. It changes the world because it's your own story, and nobody can disagree with your story. They can disagree with numbers or
bits and pieces.
Trends and bits and pieces, but nobody can argue with your story, and that's so impactful. So coming out for sustainability is it's just incredible, because then you're able to say, this is what I care about. This is what the impact. This is my vision for a better world, a more fabulous planet.
And can you, since you brought it up, like, how did you start out for sustainability? I know on your site you like joked about you wanted to meet great people and hopefully get a date, which was hilarious. But I'm sure there's a deeper story behind that.
Yeah. Well, in a way, that's the story.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a sustainable business program, an MBA, near Seattle on this beautiful island, and it was pretty incredible because it was so intentional, and we were thinking about the food that we ate and the power systems of the student to faculty connection. But there wasn't this sense of orientation was visible.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like I almost went back in the closet when I joined the sustainability movement, because it didn't talk about sexual orientation. It was like, oh, that's not important. We have more
Right.
pressing things to think about. And I'm like, but intersections are where the richness is. And if we're only thinking about clean energy, but not in the way of how it impacts someone in their real day-to-day life, which being queer, we have real day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
And so the more I can bring that into the sustainability world, the better.
Well, it also seems kind of antithetical to, lesbians of a certain age were vegan first.
Totally.
We're vegetarian. We're living off the land.
Yeah.
So it's kind of strange that the sustainability movement doesn't consider that part of its history.
Well, it's like the queer community gets criticized for occasionally is assimilation. We try to blend in so that we aren't as offensive to the mainstream, and sustainability is trying to do the same thing, or at least it was. And I think it's changing, and I think, just like the LGBTQ community is amazing because it's the most diverse community in the world. We come from everywhere and everyone, so everyone's included. The sustainability world, I think, is also realizing that you need to include everybody. Like you say, lesbians, there's the stereotype about Habitat for Humanity.
Right.
Like, lesbians have been known for doing good work for society and each other
Forever.
and collaboratively, literally forever. Yeah, exactly. and gay men
since the 70s.
maybe don't have the same stereotypes, but you look at the radical fairy movement, like there's a lot of instances.
Right.
The Harris group did a poll way back in 2010, so my thought is it's even gotten more, that found LGBT, or gay and lesbian was how they framed it. Gay and lesbians care about sustainability 8 years ago, 55% versus the average population of 33%. So, and there's multiple studies that show progressive values transcend, they reinforce each other.
Right.
So when you care about sustainability, you're more likely to care about people.
Right.
And if you care about people, you're more likely to care about the systems and the environment that impacts them on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Jumping off of that in sort of a different way, one of the things I
Right.
found really funny and interesting on your site, and we were talking about it before we started recording, was there's a section called Nature is So Gay on your site, which I found absolutely hysterical and adorable, but it's basically going through like how queerness and homosexuality appears in a lot of the animal kingdom, which I found cute and adorable. First off, I wanted to ask, what's your favorite queer animal?
Oh, I love that question.
Yeah. And we'll get to the second question after that.
Yeah. I would say, for multiple reasons, giraffes. I identified with giraffes as a kid, and now I know why, because they are super queer. Male giraffes have a really high instance of homosexual behavior, and it's primarily through necking. So they will literally touch and rub necks with each other to show affection, and it's not about domination or anything like that. It's just they just like each other.
That's really adorable.
It's so sweet and adorable. Yeah, who doesn't love that?
See, well, when I was a kid, I remember being terrified of giraffes because I would go to the zoo and they would just peek over and they would towering above me. That just terrified me. Now I love them, but they scared the crap out of me when I was a kid.
They're a powerful animal. Yeah.
But the second question on that, on a more serious note, is why do you think it's important to be talking about that, to be talking about queerness within the natural world?
Well, people talk about certain people talk about how being LGBTQ is unnatural, that we are somehow deviating in this modern evolution. It's not true. It's just not true. Humanity has a long history of different forms of non-heteronormative behavior, and the natural world exhibits that immensely. There's, I think, 1,600 documented species that have homosexual behavior or trans behavior or anything. Like the natural world is a spectrum. There are monogamous animals. There are birds that are trans. There are notably penguins male penguins who raise female kind of discarded eggs. Like
Right.
there's a purpose to everything in nature, and if you think about that, how everything in nature reinforces itself in this perfect loop, as long as humans don't mess it up too much, then we see that being queer is actually a vital part of the natural world, and so we as queer people are a vital part of the natural world.
Yeah, and I remember when I was a kid, when I was like finding out that I was trans, I would always it actually was like comforting to me to hear like, oh, there's oysters that change their gender and things like that, and that was actually, it feels a little bit silly, but it also felt like really cool to hear. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because it was a very like personal point that I was interested in hearing your thoughts on. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love a good queer animal story. I
thought you were going to say I like oysters.
I have texture issues. So.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I love it. Whenever we see, like I wrote about the gay lions.
Yeah.
And of course the history of penguins. They're kind of the most interesting.
There was just an article that we posted on our Facebook page about a blind goose who was in a three-way relationship with swans or something.
Right.
And it was
he passed away.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Oh no!
But it was so beautiful that existed in the world. Like nature finds a way.
Right.
I hadn't heard that story, and I was like, oh, that's so adorable. And then he died, and I'm like, oh, you gave me
I
so
was
much
gonna gloss over
heartbreak.
that part.
You gave me so much heartbreak in like 2 seconds.
I mean,
that's adorable.
I know. Well, I'm sorry. But he lived a good life. I think he was
very happy. Yeah.
Older.
Yes. Yeah.
And he had more love in his life than I do. So
it's okay. I'm right there with you.
So we wanted to ask you, how has it changed since the 2016 election, the sustainability movement? Because I mean, there is an onslaught against
it's
everything.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I look at like the national park system and how there's this underground swell of people who are organizing in opposition to the forces that are trying to destroy the national park system.
That was wild.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And I follow them on social media, as we all should, national parks. And it's incredible to see the grassroots organizing, that we're not really as reliant, because the systems aren't there, on the power. You can't rely strictly on the top of the pyramid, so to speak, to get things done anymore. With the EPA being really decimated, and people's careers being, not to mention just the work that they do being called into question by the power, there's, I think, an opportunity that's being taken advantage of, like a lot of other movements, but sustainability being something that transcends, a lot of different people's lives. We have to take it into our own hands now, and grassroots activism has never been more important. And I think that that's coming out, and I think that there's room to grow. But it is difficult. It's like every day there's a new assault on something that we didn't know was under threat.
Yeah,
right. I mean, shooting hibernating bears, for one thing.
Yeah.
What was the one with the streams?
Oh my God, there's so many. It's like every single day, it's hard to keep track of all the things. The Arctic drilling that is coming about because of deals made with Russia. About it's all, and it's all a system. Yeah. So and it's I think of it as a paradigm. When you think about the world as how can I make this a better space for all, which is what grassroots activism needs to do now, is really sort of reach out and broad and we got marriage equality through coalition building, and I think that's what sustainability needs to do now, is to coalition build with people who are in faith communities, in social justice communities, because ultimately, if we run out of water, we all will perish.
Yeah.
And water wars are potentially a thing. It sometimes sounds so catastrophic and like conspiracy theorist of all of the potential negative impacts from climate change, but it impacts our community.
Yeah.
And you look at Katrina, someone who's trans got arrested for using the wrong bathroom at a shelter in Houston. That's a problem that we need to be able to address. As we put it in one of our sessions at Fab Planet a couple of years ago, it's queer and present danger. And we need to be prepared as a community, and that's through grassroots. So it's one of the reasons that we just started our Q Ready program. There's ready.gov, which empowers people to be prepared for a natural disaster. Well, climate disasters are going to keep growing, so we need to be prepared for that as a community, and there are unique needs around safety, documentation, and all these things.
How do you see, you were mentioned there's a new attack every single day.
Right.
How do we sort of work together, both as an environmentalist community and as a queer community, to sort of pool our resources, as it were, work to fight all of these different things at the same time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's about picking something every day and not trying to do it all. We do have to work together, because what I care about and what you care about are nuanced but different, right? So if we are able to each kind of live our truth and find that little thing that is here's how my greener pride's going to express itself today, then it gets better. It's like picking trash up off the sidewalk. If everybody did it, there'd be no trash on the sidewalk. And if we can all attack something or take on a challenge that really means something to us, that we are uniquely suited to address, there'd be no more problems in the world.
And that's actually a good place to jump on to what are some of your tips or some of your ideas that we can green our pride?
Yeah, absolutely. I think plastic water bottles are going to be like smoking when you're pregnant in a couple years. So there's one. As possible, try to just think about what is it that you're consuming. Especially in the U.S., we're a consumer culture. So you vote with your dollars, you vote with your impact. It sounds small, but recycle. Figure out how to compost. Most cities have at least a farmer's market you can take your compost to. There's little things you can do in your home life, and then think about your workplace. Is there a way that you can build a green team, if there isn't one already, to be more sustainable at work? Even if it's just double-sided printing. I know it's annoying sometimes, but these things matter. They add up. And so it's just finding that little thing that delights you. Like my example of finding shoes that I can resole. The less disposable we are with our stuff, the less disposable we see ourselves.
Oh, I like that. That's actually great.
And what about your clothes? I was just wondering, do you thrift shop?
I do thrift shop a bit, and I also try to just buy things that I know are going to last. Yeah. I try to stay away from the kind of disposable culture in general. But I'm not perfect either. Nobody's perfect, and I think that that's something really to remember. You don't have to be perfect to do this work. So love your life, live it, have joy, be proud, be fabulous, and do it in a way that isn't going to cause you shame or guilt because you're not doing what you know is right.
Great.
Yeah.
And I think, is it time to...
I think it's time to wind up.
Yeah, we have to sort of wrap up, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. This is delightful.
Yeah.
I could talk about this every day. And I do, yeah.
I was going to say, I think you do.
Yeah, I do.
I imagine that's part of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. Yeah.